What will happen to the Kansas City real estate market as soon as mortgage rates decrease? We're going to be reacting to 5 bold predictions in this article from Realtor.com, which yes, is in the context of the entire United States, but we're going to be rating each of these predictions likely or unlikely based on what's happening right here in Kansas City. So here's what those predictions are. 1, mortgage rates will decline gradually. 2, homes will become more affordable. 3, home buyers can expect more competition. 4, lower rates could lead to more homes for sale. And 5, if you see a home you love, don't wait. So let's get started with prediction number 1, which is that mortgage rates will decrease gradually. They say this for a couple different reasons. The first one being that inflation's easing and that the Federal Reserve will cut rates sooner rather than later. The second point is that we shouldn't expect interest rates to free fall, more like a gradual decline with some ups and downs along the way. And then third is that we should see somewhere around 6% mortgage rates by the end of 2024, and then somewhere around 5.75% by the end of 2025. Now, I generally agree with most of this. There's one point that I disagree with, but overall, I'm going to rate this likely. We'll likely see mortgage rates gradually decline over the next year. Where I disagree is I think that if we're able to hit 6% rates by the end of 2024, which would be a big deal, keep in mind that for a large part of this year and the past year in 2023, we were looking at 7%. So sometimes even over 7% mortgage rates. So if we're able to hit 6% by the end of 2024, that's a whole point decrease. And it seems like ticky-tacky little numbers, but that's a lot of money at the end of the day, and it totally impacts how much home you're able to afford, how much that monthly payment is. So I think if we hit 6% by the end of 2025, we're probably not looking at 5.75 by the end of 2025. We're probably looking at somewhere in the mid 5%, which is really, really good news because we made a video a couple of weeks ago. That's like the magic number when a lot of people will dive back into the real estate market who held off on selling their homes over the past couple of years. So overall, I rate this likely. Big emphasis on we'll see some ups and downs as mortgage rates start to fall. But this is overall good news for the Kansas City real estate market. And before we get to prediction number 2, if this is your first time seeing these videos, then welcome to the channel. My name is Massa. I'm a local real estate agent licensed in Kansas and Missouri. I make these videos about the Kansas City real estate market, suburbs in Kansas City, and new homes in the area so you can stay on top of everything and hopefully get the best home at the best price possible. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. All my contact info is down below. This is where most of my clients find me. So if you think we'd be a good fit, give me a call, text, or email. Love to support you and put a strategy together to find you the perfect home. Prediction number 2 is that homes will become more affordable, but not by much. They make 2 points here. The first being that lower mortgage rates will improve housing affordability because now you can afford a more expensive home with less out of your pocket every single month going to the mortgage. The second point they make is that Realtor.com predicts that home prices will decrease by 1.7% this year. Now, I'm going to rate the overall prediction unlikely. I also disagree with both of those points. So let's break them down. The first is that lower rates improve housing affordability. I strongly disagree. And you'll see a couple of the predictions in this article, they blatantly contradict each other. If more people are able to afford housing, more people are going to jump into the market, which means demand keeps going up and up and up, even though there aren't many new homes hitting the market, right? So demand outpaces supply, causes home prices to increase. We'll touch on that throughout this article. So if there is any improvement in affordability, it's going to be very, very short-lived, and it won't be a net improvement in affordability. The second major point that they're making is that home prices will decrease this year. A lot of people came out and said that last year. This might be true of the entire United States as a whole, certainly not in Kansas City. We've got too much of a housing shortage. There's too much demand for housing here. Even last year alone, when mortgage rates nearly doubled in the course of just 1 year, we still saw above average appreciation on both sides of state line at around 5.6% according to Zillow. We could look at a couple different numbers, but no matter what way you split it, we saw anywhere between 4 to 6% and maybe a little bit over 6% depending on who you ask in terms of home price appreciation just last year. So it's very unlikely that if we do see mortgage rates to decrease, that we'll see home prices go down here as well. Of course, the laws of supply and demand will hold true, and I think Kansas City, at the very least, is distinct from the rest of the United States in terms of the housing market here. Prediction number 3 is that home buyers will face more competition, and there are a couple points for this. The first one being that if mortgage rates make buying a home more affordable, has the potential to drive home prices even higher as buyers compete for a limited limited number of homes for sale. The second point is that waived appraisals, shortened inspection timelines are also likely to make a comeback. And finally, that means writing more offers than you would have had to just last year. I would rate this overall prediction very likely, especially in Kansas City. And this is why I said it's very unlikely that we'll see housing affordability improve. As soon as those rates drop, everybody's jumping back into the market, and home prices are now the problem that you're having to deal with. So as of right now, there are two paths that you can take. There totally depends on what you're looking for. The first fight you can pick is with mortgage rates. You can lock in today's home prices. We know as soon as those rates start to drop, those home prices are going to start climbing up pretty quickly. It's going to be very hard to get in under contract on one of these homes because of how many people are competing for them. But what you do have control of is that mortgage rate. Right? You can refinance over the next year or 2 years as soon as rates go down to 5%. That way you're sidestepping a lot of that competition. Second fight you can pick is that competition. Maybe you're not ready to buy the home right now. Maybe you're looking forward to a decreased mortgage rate so you can afford a bigger house at a lower monthly payment. If you're going to write an offer on a home, you got to be fairly aggressive in some of these markets, especially the ones that we covered in last week's video, where a lot of these homes are selling in about 2 to 3 days at most. But if you're on the fence trying to pick between one or the other, it is always the case that if you have to compete against other home buyers, you're either going to pay a higher price or you're going to have to concede some of the terms like the inspection or the appraisal. So it all depends on your bottom line, your preferences, and the market you're looking to buy a home in, which is why it's important to reach out. Just one of the ways that we've helped our clients maximize the value of their home despite competition. One, if you're open to new construction, there are a lot of spec homes that are almost complete or that are move-in ready. And for the first time in years, those are sitting on the market and they're getting price cuts. There are incentives on those homes. Sometimes they'll buy down your mortgage rate to make it more favorable for you. That's a great option. There's very little competition over those right now. The second, we discussed in last week's video, some of these homes that are selling really quick. You can look at other markets that many people aren't looking at, or you can go and look at homes in the middle of the week and beginning of the week before the weekends when most of your competition is out trying to buy a home. But overall, if mortgage rates decrease, here in Kansas City, home prices are going to certainly start increasing. There will be far more competition for these homes. Prediction number 4 is that lower rates could unleash more homes for sale on the market. Now, their main point here is that 80% of mortgage holders are carrying a rate below 5%. Perhaps if mortgage rates decrease, they'll be more willing to sell their home. Now, this overall prediction that lower rates means more supply on the market, I would rate it very, very unlikely, especially here in Kansas City. The reason for that, and they kind of hint at it later on in the article, they say many home sellers are also home buyers, so strong demand could place a ceiling on how much supply can improve. In other words, if the reason they're not buying a home right now and the reason they're not going to sell their current home is because mortgage rates are high, this is not a net increase in supply. This just means there will be more homes bought and sold, not that there will be increased supply compared to demand. So this really isn't the benefit that it really seems like, and that you'll see in a lot of headlines that are pushing this as good news. It's not really the best news in the world. Maybe there are more options to choose from, and maybe there's a benefit to that, but it comes with a cost of more competition, the higher prices, potentially having to concede on your terms. Now, one thing that they brought up that I do appreciate is 80% of mortgage holders are at 5% mortgage rates or lower. That's an important number. Wouldn't most of those people be willing to give up a 5% mortgage rate for something in the lower 6s or the mid 5%? That remains to be seen, but we'll certainly cover it on this channel. So we're going to move on to the 5th major prediction, which is that if you see a home you love, don't wait. Before we dig into their reasons for why that's the case, this totally depends on your timeline, your risk threshold, the area of town that you're looking in, right? Some suburbs are way more competitive than others, just like we talked about in last week's video. All of this is to say there's a lot going on right now. There could be a lot of competition if you wait. It's important to have a plan and strategy in place for all of this stuff, regardless of where you're at, regardless of this specific prediction or this specific piece of advice. So feel free to reach out if you think we'd be a good fit. We have a phone call, text message, email. We'd love to support you, help you maximize the value of your money when it comes to buying or building a home in the Kansas City suburbs. If we go back to that prediction, if you see a home you love, don't wait. There are a couple reasons for this in the article. The first is that in the face of uncertain predictions, buyers are advised to weigh financial preparedness and personal circumstances. They say there are 3 things that you can do. One is consider lower priced markets. 2, prepare finances so you can act pretty quickly. 3, you can constantly monitor new listings so you're ready to go if something you see hits the market. Another thing that they say is that since there's a housing shortage, finding the right home might be a little tough because there are fewer options. So if you find something that you like, they're saying that it makes more sense to move forward now instead of wait, because you could be waiting for a very long time. Now, this overall prediction, if you see a home that you like, don't wait. I would generally agree with it. But again, this totally comes down to your circumstances. The reason I say this generally is because home prices, at least in Kansas City, are not going down anytime soon. Of course, it depends on the part of town, the suburb or city that you're located in. Generally, prices in Kansas City have been increasing even as prices throughout the United States have plateaued or even decreased over the last year. A couple of things that you can do, we've already talked about them. One, sidestep competition. It's not good for you as a home buyer to be competing against other people, but make sure you're going and looking at homes Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday when most people are not. Second thing that you can do, go after some new construction, whether it's building a home, buying a move-in ready home. There's less competition. I have not run into any. I know it happens from time to time, but it's very, very unlikely, especially compared to what you'll see in terms of competition for older and more pre-existing homes. Third thing that you can do, look at some lower priced markets. Like where I bought my home a couple years ago, it's like if you look at Johnson County on the Kansas side, I noticed Mission and Roland Park, they're extremely undervalued, but the prices are increasing very, very quickly, kind of like what we saw in Prairie Village just a couple years back. Made a whole video about some underrated suburbs, undervalued suburbs on the Kansas side, so feel free to take a look at that. It's a great way to maximize the value of your investment. All of this is to say that there's a lot going on. It's important to have a plan and strategy in place. We'd love to support you, so feel free to reach out. And next up, you can watch this video that YouTube thinks you would enjoy the most, or you can watch last week's real estate market update right up here with some of the most competitive suburbs in the Kansas City housing market. So click either right here or here, and I'll see you on the other side.